Hey, this is Jim from the Savage FINcast. We are trying something new, not so much episode. This is going to be like a mini episode, of which we have not come up with a name for yet because we aren't the most organized bunch. But we're going to be trying some things. It's just me. Craig and Raven aren't here. This is just something that I decided to attempt. But with me, I have internet friend that I've known. Do you mind if I call you Hawkmonger or Zach?
Yeah, of course you can. Of course, everyone can just call me Zach.
Zach, my friend from the internet. Say hi, Zach.
Hello. I have listenership.
Yeah. Zach and me, we met through the 2000 AD forums and our similar interest with 2000 AD and Judge Dredd, etc., etc. Those on the FinCast have probably heard me babble about Judge Dredd whenever I can because you got to get it in when you can.
Yeah, definitely, because it's not a big presence, is it, really?
No. But the reason I brought Zach on today is because recently with the free comic book day issue of Savage Dragon Legacy, he's taken the opportunity to test Savage Dragon, whereas his experience with Dragon in the past has not been significant. He tells me that you've read the issue 0 back when it was free on Comixology a while back, but other than that, you're completely newbie to Savage Dragon. I thought that would be fascinating just to get your experience with trying the free comic book day legacy issue. So it's good to have you on, Zach.
All right, thank you very much for having me. Right, do you want me to move on to the issues?
Yeah. Let's just get right into it. What was your overall, experience with this? Because you've told me that you read the issue 0, but it was like 3 or 4 years ago.
No, not that long ago.
Not that long.
A couple of months ago, but it's not that clear in my mind. It's not as recent as the free comic book day issue that I read just the other day. But I do know enough about it to be able to talk about that.
Oh, sure.
But basically, it was just the overview. I remember that the issue 0 was the origin story.
Yes.
I don't know if that obviously gets detailed again later on in early issues or at any point in the series. I should imagine it would have been, but this was obviously just a jump back as an introduction for new readers.
Yes.
But then, of course, the new free comic book day issue is just a jumping on point for people who want to get on mid-series. It's like, what's it up to now?
203 was the latest. 204 is out this week.
Yeah, I did see that on the upcoming Comixology, and I'll probably be picking it up because I really, really enjoyed the free comic book day issue.
That's cool.
It has a similar vibe to a lot of the other indie comics that come out from Image or Dark Horse that I really, really like. Like, I got a bit of it. Just as a bit of a name drop, I really like Vagoon from Dark Horse, Eric Powell. And the fact that it is not so much a satire of, but kind of just a series that mocks, but also kind of enjoys the kind of genre it is as it goes along.
Right. It's like celebrates its own genre while also not being afraid to pick fun at it.
Rather than mock, a better word. Yeah, definitely. How Goon was obviously a Will Eisner spirit kind of parody, and Savage Dragon, with his whole superhero kind of universe, is a bit of a darker twist on what Marvel and DC normally do. I'm not sure a bit of a darker twist. It is a little bit more silly from what I can see than what DC currently do.
Right. It doesn't take itself as seriously.
Oh, no. What I did like was how it introduced both Malcolm Dragon, the current Savage Dragon, and the original Savage Dragon. I forget what his name is.
He doesn't have a name. It's just Dragon.
It's just Dragon.
It's just Dragon. That's his official real name.
Okay.
That's sort of a running joke, is that he's called Dragon, but like everyone calls him Savage Dragon. It's not really his name, but it's the title of the comic. Yeah. So, but yeah, he goes just by Dragon. His son's name's Malcolm Dragon. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, if you have any questions during this, I'll help fill in some blanks you might have had.
The main story in the free comic book day issue, I didn't have a problem with at all. There was one thing about the repopulation of the species.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, that I assume that's a massive plot.
Yeah, that's sort of been an ongoing thing for a little.
That's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
I should imagine I'd pick that up and I wouldn't want to ask too much about it in case it spoils anything. But the one big thing that I didn't quite wrap my head around was the backup strip. Which I assume was set before the main story.
Way back. That is actually a reprint straight out of issue 103. See,
okay.
Yeah, and what the intent of that was to show you how Malcolm got from. Well, see, it's hard. See, now that you mention that, it doesn't give a lot of context to what's going on. Did you picked up that it was Malcolm, right?
Yeah. I that was easy enough to pick up. But what kind of just confused me was and now you say that it's a reprint from a really old issue. That does make sense because I did notice the art style was different,
yes.
Not necessarily more crude, but it was obviously of a different era.
At the time, Eric Larson was going for a very Kirby-esque art style, like really pushing the Kirby style. So it's a little bit, the edges are a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Boxier, I guess. I mean, but it was definitely a different artistic period for him. Than it is currently.
Yeah, I noticed that his line work on the characters was a lot thicker back then than it was in the new material at the beginning of the issue.
Right.
Like it was definitely an artistic shift that kind of had me scratch my head a little bit, going, is this just kind of like something that was chucked in from an older issue or something new,
right,
to expand on the universe for new readers?
But yes, that was a reprint from 100 issues ago. That was just kind of I believe it just got kind of thrown in there as a kind of another introduction to Malcolm.
Yeah,
but
I don't think it really added anything that the main story didn't already explain.
Gotcha.
Because it did mention the World Eater and the overall presence of other superpowered beings in the Savage Dragon universe.
Right. Which, now that I think about it, the main story didn't really have a lot of other superheroes.
No.
So the backup kind of showed that they're a thing.
Yeah. But that's also what confused me, because the backup strip just left it on the cliffhanger that everyone was effectively dead.
Right.
Or that's what it looked like.
Right.
And then obviously something's happened in between
right.
where it felt like it had been pulled out of Crisis on Infinity Earths.
Yes, that is sort of what happened.
Yeah, it felt like what it was going for.
There's a big chunk of story in there that I can definitely see without having the context. It's hard to really figure out what's going on. I can see that.
So putting the backup strip aside, right. I did feel the main story was really, really good. It did explain a lot of the questions I had about the series. Putting aside the baby thing that was at the end, about recreating the species.
Right.
Putting that aside, the fact that it was just a straight up superhero action series, it wasn't any kind of question about what the tone of it would have been like. I didn't at all feel like I wasn't going in for anything. If I was to start picking up the series more often, I find it a little bit difficult to articulate my words here.
Yeah.
That it wasn't selling it short.
Okay.
It gave you exactly what you're expecting from it. It's just the fact that what I did like was the compressed storytellings. Like, we did manage to get the scenes in the police station,
right?
Scenes with Malcolm's other half, and there was one or two other downtime scenes, but it was just 3 action scenes of Malcolm at work, Malcolm Dragon doing his job, and I did like that, of how Eric Larson has used that to kind of convey what his ethos and the job is as a character.
Right.
The fact that he's just a pretty straight up character. There's no real kind of grey areas with him. He's a very easy character to understand.
Right. He doesn't
I'm pretty sure he just obviously get fleshed out a lot more later on.
Yeah. This is still early days for Malcolm. He's only been the star for like 6 or 8 issues. Yeah, this is like during this is like his early day origin stuff. Is that this is defining his life, much like his dad back in the early days of Savage Dragon.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny you should mention that because I did see I've mentioned these one of our messages, the archives books, the great big collections of the early Savage Dragons. There's 3 of them now.
Mm-hmm.
I did see the first one on the Image stand at Fort Bubble in November, and it kind of stood out a mile because it was the only reprint of theirs from way back when. Everything they were advertising was from 2012 onwards. It's just like they had Saga, they had Bedlam, they had Wicked plus the Divine, which I can't stand, but that's another thing for another day. So Savage Dragon was really the only of their old school titles
that they really are
that they were pushing, and that was what caught my attention with it, because if they're pushing something that's X number of years older than everything else they have, it's obviously something they have a lot of faith in.
Well, there's not a lot of stuff that's still around from that period. It's just Dragon and Spawn, really.
Oh yeah, Spawn. Yeah, I forgot Spawn was also there, but I'm not the biggest Spawn fan, so I just kind of ignored that. But I would definitely be interested in picking up future issues.
So you're going to look into 204 when it comes out, just to see?
Next week, yeah. I probably would be.
Now, you're reading it in print. You said before we went on the air that you did use Comixology before, but...
Well, since you introduced me to Chunky through, obviously, using the Free Comic Book Day app,
I
have been considering just buying things on my online Comixology page, and because... Are they DRM free?
All Image books are.
Because if they're not, I can always just read it on the app. There's nothing wrong with the Comixology app whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's just a Chunky one. Having read certain things that I had on my Dropbox, I find it so much better than Comixology.
Well, Comixology is locked to only Comixology purchases, so with Chunky, you can at least, like, I read 2000 AD on it because I can get the CBR files from the 2000 AD store, so I read all my 2000 AD through it.
Yeah,
which is really handy. And of course, most Comixology purchases these days come with DRM-free files that I also use. And there's a handful that don't, like all my Archie stuff. But other than that, I primarily use Chunky, and I think it's a great app.
I'd have to look at moving a lot of the stuff I already have on the Comixology kind of backlog. Like I've got all my issues of Max and...
Max?
Yeah, the Max. What's his name now? It's funny when you start talking about it, you just forget everyone's name.
You know what? I have the same problem.
Yeah. What's his name? Oh, forget it.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's a reprint of an IDW. That was actually published by Image way back as well. It's one of those Cricket's own comics. Yeah.
It just that is an old Image comic that, Keith Champagne. I think that's his name.
Yes. It's a very weird series, but it's like I've got all those and everything else.
Dragon Max crossover in the early days.
Yes, that was also my only other exposure to Savage Dragon before this. The only reason I didn't mention it was because Savage Dragon is present in all of 4 panels.
Right.
It's mostly focused on a villain.
Mako?
Mako,
the Shark Man, yes.
Yeah, Shark Man. I will admit I did get a couple of laughs out of him because they got the Jaws references and everything in there. But I did wonder if he is a big reoccurring villain.
Oh, he's a big reoccurring villain.
Does the Jaws references ever grind? Because
there actually aren't that many.
20 pages.
There aren't that many Jaws references.
They obviously just wanted to cram it in for the crossover then.
Yeah, I think Champagne probably decided to go that route, whereas mostly Mako is a strong, tough guy who likes to eat his victims. Yeah.
It's like Savage Dragon is one of the characters where I've just heard it battered about a lot. It's like when I got the martial law collection, they mentioned in the index another crossover.
There's a martial law Savage Dragon crossover.
Yeah. drawn by Kevin O'Neill.
Yes.
So it would look fantastic if nothing else. That always struck me as a little bit surprising considering how much Pat Mills hates superheroes.
Pat Mills hates superheroes.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot.
It's a very interesting
shut up
crossover.
about
If you
it.
haven't read it, I recommend tracking it down. It's not, as far as I know, it's not reprinted anywhere. I'm not sure if it wasn't reprinted in the DC collections.
No, none of the crossovers were, obviously for legal reasons.
Yeah.
You've got Pinhead, Savage Dragon, and The Mask, all owned by different companies. DC wouldn't be able to get the rights to all of them.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure who even owns the right to Hellraiser comics at the minute.
I have no idea.
I have no idea either. But no, it's one of those characters that I've read little bits of now, thanks to the Zero issue and the Free Comic Book Day issue and Max issue 8.
Yeah,
I think
something
he's
like
in.
that. I haven't actually read the Max issues that he's in. I've only read the Dragon issues that Max is in.
Yes, I've heard that they also did a kind of like an exchange thing.
They did.
I'd be interested to see that because
I'll figure out what issue that is for you later.
because it'd be interesting to know if it was the same story but just from different perspectives.
I think they're different stories.
They were completely different.
I think they're completely different stories.
Yeah, it's funny because Max isn't even owned by Image anymore. He's still owned
Image doesn't own any of their characters. No. They're all creator owned. So if the creator decides to go somewhere else, they go with them.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought one or two were owned by Image.
Only thing Image owns is the Image Eye on their covers. That's the only trademark that they own. Everything else is owned by the creators themselves.
I see now. I thought at least Spawn and Witchblade were. Not that I've never read.
Witchblade's owned by Top Cow, which is owned by Mark Silventri, and Spawn's owned by Todd McFarlane. And so,
of course, because they had that early issue of Spawn where Dave Sim wrote it, and he just basically went on a massive rant about industrially created and owned comic characters. So, it's Dave Sim, isn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, there is. I assumed at least because of how long they'd been around, at least one or two of the big Image characters were owned by Image. But now you mention it, it makes sense that they wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's Image's whole deal is that they don't own characters. They are only they only publish. They give creators and that also means that they don't pay people page rates or anything. Creators are responsible for their own production. That's sort of the reason why Image books are the joke is that they're always late because it's all down to the creators to make it happen. So anyway, from the sound of it, overall you enjoyed Free Comic Book Day Legacy issue.
Yeah, no, I definitely did. There were one or two obviously things I found confusing, but I read a lot of the Free Comic Book Day issues from previous years, and they all had that issue.
Yeah.
That they exist to get you interested, and it succeeded like that.
You like the fact that it wasn't just a reprint?
No. Of the best Free Comic Book Days issues create stuff. They don't just rely on reprint.
Right.
It's like the 2000 AD Free Comic Book Day issue was about 70% new material this year.
Was it?
It was most of it was new stuff. I think the only reprint was the McMahon Future Shock, Dan Dare, and the old Judge Dredd Daily Star strips. Those were the only reprints. Everything else was new.
I have never been able to get my hands on a 2000 AD Free Comic Book Day issue. 3 years.
Because they don't put it on the app.
They don't. That's 3 years in a row, I went out to try to get physical copies. First 2 years, they just didn't show up. Third year, apparently a truck crashed and they were all destroyed. And they refuse to put them up they refuse to put them up digitally. They say that because they're for Free Comic Book Day, they'll be print only forever. And that sucks for me.
I have the last 3 or 4 years backlogged, so I have to see what I can do for you. But no, a lot of the pretty much everyone from the last couple of years has been at least 50% new material.
I knew there's always new Judge Dredd story, but I thought it was like new Judge Dredd and a bunch of reprints. But it sounds like
that was the one that was supposed to have Norm Brayfogle on it, wasn't it? But then he's had his big cancer incident. Well, big cancer incident. He's got cancer.
Yeah.
So they got some artist who worked on Deadpool. To do it instead, and it was an alright story.
This year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who did. I think Ben Wilshire did the one last year, and they've all been written by
the publisher,
the The editor,
yeah,
the
I forget his
by
name.
far. But they've all been, they've existed to establish what Dread is like, and that's what I liked in the Savage Dragon new material,
Right.
because it did establish what Malcolm Dragon was like as a character.
All right, cool.
And did introduce his world. Yeah, it was very successful from that point of view.
Well, Zach, we at the Savage FinCast, we really liked having you on and getting your opinion on this free comic book day issue. We just don't get the opportunity enough to talk to people who either have preconceived notions or have read it in the past and just haven't come. A lot of people we meet, they read it in the past, got their fill, and they just think it's like every other comic that's the same 20 years later. But
yeah,
it's good to meet somebody that's interested in it, now and today, and they had a good experience with their first experience. It's always good to have a good first impression.
Yeah. Well, it's like a lot of the other comics you recommended to me. It's like Usagi Yojimbo.
Sorry, Egos?
Egos. Yes. When's the next issue of that coming out?
I don't know. It took, hopefully soon. There was actually a year gap between issue 4 and issue 5. Yeah. It was very annoying.
That was because that's what made it interesting, because there was only 6 issues or something in the first volume, and I got that, and then I just jumped on, and I've loved it so far. It reminds me of Mobius and The Fifth Element and all that great European sci-fi and stuff like that. So I really liked that, and the other big one was Usagi Yojimbo, which I've only just got onto.
You said online that you had just got the latest issue. You read Senso.
I read Senso.
And then you got 145, the latest issue.
Yeah. And I've also pre-ordered the big special edition that Fantagraphics are putting out in a couple of months that has their entire run on it.
I'm a big fan of Usagi.
And then I think I'll probably... Pardon?
I'm a big fan of Usagi Yojimbo.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very good.
It feels like a comedic version of Lone Wolf and Cub, which I think is what Stan Sakai wanted to go for.
Yes.
So he definitely succeeded on that, and I loved Senso, and not just because it was a War of the Worlds story,
right?
Which I love most things to do with War of the Worlds anyway. It's they also had Wild's End last year, which was another.
Well, that was a good book.
That was really good. Yeah. I really, really liked that. And
I made comment at the time that there were 2 anthropomorphic animal comics with War of the Worlds references.
War of the Worlds. Of the 2, I think Senso was my favourite, but I don't think there's any chance of a sequel. It was just pretty much self-contained.
Yeah.
Especially considering it is set in the future for.
Oh, Senso? Yeah. It does kind of read like it's supposed to be the end of the series at some nebulous point in the future.
Yeah.
I thought that was the most interesting thing about it, though, is that it pushed character arcs forward, but it's they won't be dealt with in the present, so it's kind of weird that way.
Well, there was also the what was it called? The Demon Samurai guy. Is it Ray?
I'm not sure. I gotta be completely honest. I've only read up to issue 4. I have not finished reading it.
I can't remember what he was called, but he seems to be a long-term rival of Usagi, and he just comes out of obviously the building he was in,
right?
Flailing his sword around, furious and angry, and then in 2 panels he just gets vaporized by the tripod.
Yeah.
And I was just was he a main character? Am I supposed to feel something about that?
Maybe.
And I'll probably get that as I've continued to read the monthly and I read the back catalogue. Because I am grateful then that Fantagraphics and Dark Horse are putting out these massive omnibuses that I can just pick up, and it'll be easy enough to catch up.
Yeah,
because 145 issues isn't that much.
Plus spin-offs. Plus
spin-offs.
Plus spin-offs. There's all kinds of Usagi stuff, like Space Usagi and a bunch of original graphic novels.
Did they reprint them?
I don't know.
I can't see anything on the Dark Horse app about Space Usagi.
I don't think it's on the digital app yet.
No. And plus there's obviously all these crossovers with TMNT. But
that's right. He does have Ninja Turtle crossovers way back. That's the thing I like about Usagi Yojimbo is that, like Savage Dragon, it's a long-running series that's been created by the same guy. There's a lot to respect there for a guy who sticks to his guns and does it for 25 years.
And still has the same passion.
Yeah.
because there's that one series that both you and I have read that wrapped up last year that lost a lot of its passion. Naruto.
Oh, Naruto, you drunk.
And of course it came back.
Yeah, it came back and it's actually readable again because
I'm enjoying it
it's
so far.
surprisingly enjoyable at the moment.
It is. It still has a few of, like, you just sit there and you go, Kishimoto, really? But
There
other than
aren't a
that,
billion characters that you can't keep track of. That helps.
I think it also helps that in the mini he's dropped most of them, so now it's just like 10 characters who you actually need to understand.
I know the guy can make good comics. He did a bunch of one-shots over the last couple of years that were all good.
What was that gangster one he did?
Oh,
'Cause
that was Mario.
I really hoped he came back to that after Naruto. Maybe after he finishes this mini.
And did that baseball one, too, that was surprisingly good.
I don't remember anything about that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure which issue that was in, but that was pretty good. So anyway, I think we've run longer than I anticipated, but it was good to get your opinion on all of this. It's good to touch base with other people about comics and about Savage Dragon, of course. But it's been great to have you on.
And thank you for having me. I'd definitely like to do it in future if you ever did it again.
Hey, yeah, maybe 6 months from now when you've got more under your belt, we can touch base again, find out how things are going. If you've read more, get an archives issue or read some back issues or get a few more months of the regular series and just keep getting your opinion on it. That'd be fascinating.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned that the whole Malcolm arc started. Was it way back in 144?
Malcolm, the Malcolm arc, 144, 145. That's sort of what I consider the modern era of Savage Dragon. That was Back in Blue. That's when Dragon first. See, he was a cop to begin with, and then he stopped being a cop for a very long time. And then in Back in Blue, he puts back on the cop uniform, becomes a cop again, and then everything changes. It was actually, but it's still Dragon. Malcolm doesn't really take over the book until like 190 something. But Malcolm is important in the book about that time, about Back in Blue time. Because Malcolm's been, as you saw at the end of the Free Comic Book Day issue, Malcolm gets dumped out into space, floating. There's a period of time where he's missing from Dragon's life, and then about 145, 146, Malcolm comes back into Dragon's life. And then that's sort of where Eric just kind of built him up to take over the book.
Yeah. I might jump back to the mid 190s then just to get up to that point and read up to the current issue, and then if Comixology, because as you mentioned, there's massive gaps in the reprints.
Oh yeah, that's my biggest disappointment of Savage Dragon is that how.
Yeah, if Comixology ever have a sale, I will just buy as many of the back issues as I can to fill.
They are at least all available.
I know they've reprinted issues 1 through to the current issue. It's just they're not like below £1 or anything like that.
Yeah. I think they're all like $2 American. I'm not sure.
That's £1. I think they're $1.29 here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit over what I would pay for something that's that old.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's completely understandable.
Especially considering there's 200 plus of them.
That's quite a chunk of change.
Takes a lot. Yeah. Whereas the archives are, even though they are in black and white, they're only like £15 here. So that's $30 US?
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, about that. So I'll be able to fill it out at some point or another.
Yeah.
But anyway, I won't take up any more of your time.
All right, it's been good to have you on.
It's very good. Thank you for having me.
All right.